Hey everybody, welcome back to Checkerboard Chat, the official sports podcast of the Daily Beacon. I'm Tyler Wombles, that's Damichael Cole, and we're back here bringing you more Tennessee athletics news, updates, and whatever we want to talk about. So kicking off the show today, the Tennessee football team will be traveling to Missouri on Saturday to face the Tigers. Damichael, just kicking off this conversation, what are your main sort of focuses for this upcoming game?
Well, I'm very interested in seeing how this Tennessee defense will play against Drew Lock. Drew Lock has put up some big numbers this year. He's 11th in the nation in passing yards. He leads the nation in passing touchdowns. And, he leads the SEC in passing yards. So, that just shows you how explosive the Missouri passing attack has been this season. And a lot of people may not know this, but the UT's pass defense, they're fourth in the nation right now in yards allowed. Now, granted, a lot of that is because the run defense has been very bad, to say the least. But, fourth in the nation at this point of the season, that's nothing to just – we're going to find out how good this pass defense really is, because they're going to get tested the most they have all season against Missouri.
For sure, and I think you're right on that. Obviously Drew Lock, Butch Jones really praised him on Monday, talked about he has one of the quickest releases that he's seen. Talk about, he's a guy that gets defensive fronts, fits, frustrates them. And yeah, like you said, he has those great statistics. He's arguably, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. You could argue the case that he's the best in the league this year. So I think it'll be very interesting to see this, secondary, who has had a lot of success this season. You've got guys like Rashawn Golden, Micah Abernathy, these guys, Nigel Warrior, yeah. Going up against this, against Drew Lock in this Missouri offense where, you've got a Missouri team who, on the one hand, they can score a lot of points, and they can do it through the air. But on the other hand, their defense isn't exactly what, Tiger fans would probably like to see. Damichael, what have you seen out of Missouri's defense this year, and what do you think Tennessee's offense can capitalize on?
Well, they're vulnerable. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not sure what this offense can capitalize on, because while Missouri's defense hasn't been good, Tennessee offense is only averaging 20 points a game at this point of the season. Now, granted, Missouri has allowed over 40 points, I believe, 4 times this season. And, they've given up some big games. They've allowed a lot of points. I know in their last 3 games they haven't allowed more than 21 points. But they haven't played good teams. So earlier in the season when they played better opponents, it's particularly the SEC opponents, they gave up a lot of points. So it'll be interesting to see what this bad Missouri defense is going to play like, because, Tennessee in that first quarter offensively last week, if Garantano stayed healthy that game, I thought they would have had a real big day offensively. Yeah. He looked very good in the first quarter. Everyone's been waiting on him to take the deep shots. He was throwing the deep ball. I believe he had 77 yards passing in the first quarter. So that would have put him on pace for over 300 yards through the air. And, it looked like he was going to have a really big day. So we'll see if this Tennessee offense can get it going. They'll have their opportunities. They'll have to just take advantage of them.
And I think that's really interesting that you bring that up because, obviously, I think when, Jarrett Garantano and Quentin Dormady were battling it out, over the offseason, one of the, main things that a lot of people talked about was, well, Garantano has a lot more big play potential. Dormady might be the safer pick, but Garantano's the guy that can break plays, and I think it's almost been the opposite that we've seen on the field.
No doubt.
Dormady did throw 6 interceptions, but he also threw 6 touchdowns. Garantano has started several games now, and he's only thrown 1 touchdown on the season. Now, he's only thrown 1 interception, but, it does sort of play against that case of, he's more the big play guy. I'm not saying he's not, but I think that this Tennessee offense will need to see Jarrett Garantano emerge as that playmaker if they want to have success, not just against Missouri, but against any other team, the last 3 teams, that they're facing down the stretch. But, speaking about Garantano, is he going to be healthy? And I think that's one of the big storylines because obviously we know, like you mentioned, against Southern Miss in the team's homecoming game, Garantano did not play the whole second half. Freshman Will McBride, he had his red shirt pulled. He played that game. He was 1 for 8 passing, but, he did have a couple drops from his receivers. But, Butch Jones said that Garantano is probable, and he said that on Monday and reaffirmed it Wednesday. but that it was really likely that Will McBride could see some playing time. So I think that'll be, obviously one of the X factors of this game is, how, and I know I heard someone else bring it up, but, how healthy would Garantano have to be to start? Or, is there a chance that Will McBride would play? Damichael, if Will McBride does play, just, talk a little bit about what you saw from him against Southern Miss and what do you think he could bring to this offense if Garantano is unable to play in the game?
Well, the main thing I saw from Will McBride when he took the field was that he wasn't scared. Being a freshman, getting his first playing time, he wasn't scared of the moment. I believe it was his first pass attempt. Maybe it was his second, but it was the deep pass he threw in the end zone to Josh Palmer. And you could hear the crowd just oohing and ahhing while the ball was in the air because it looked like a perfect pass, and it fell just out of his reach. And, that just showed you to make a pass like that in that situation on your third play, you have to be prepared for that kind of situation. And he showed that he was. His teammates backed that up all throughout the week, saying that they saw that he wasn't scared of the moment. So I believe that's what you will get out of Will McBride if he plays in this game. We've seen that he's a dual-threat quarterback. He had a nice 7-yard run in the last game that looked like he almost was going to break it. But we've seen that he can run the ball. Of course, Butch wants to see more out of him. I don't know if the offense will really do well with him in there, but they probably won't just, do much worse as they have so far because we've seen the offense hasn't really, just put up big numbers with him or without him in the game. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and it will be. And, I think you're right on that. This offense has been stagnant for most of the season. Obviously, we know about the touchdown drought that they snapped against Florida. And I think, talking about Will McBride, he's a guy that wasn't supposed to play this season at all. He's supposed to be a guy that's, redshirting. You have Quentin Dormady and Jarrett Garantano going in there being, your number one, number two quarterbacks. And, obviously there were the questions, who's going to play. But no one thought Will McBride would have a chance to be playing at this point in the season. So it is very interesting to see, what's going to happen with this Tennessee offense. Obviously, you did talk about some of the things Will McBride does. Yeah. He is a different player than Jarrett Garantano. He is from Texas, just like Quentin Dormady, yeah. But doesn't really have the stature, doesn't really have the size that those two guys have. Butch Jones praised McBride a lot. He talked a lot about, he said that, he just has that it factor, that it character that some players have, and they're very well liked by their teammates, and I think that's interesting. So I think if McBride does have to go in, obviously that's not the situation Tennessee fans want to see, but it is going to be one of the main storylines going into this game is, will McBride have to play, and if he does, how is that going to turn out, and how will it be different than Jarrett Garantano? Did you have anything else you want to say about this Missouri matchup, Damichael?
Not much else. Another thing we need to point out is the offensive line. The offensive line, Drew Richmond's questionable. Beck Kendrick, he's questionable too, right? So, you got two questionable guys that have been mainstays up till the last game pretty much. And it'll be interesting, but granted, Missouri doesn't have the best defensive line in the world. No. They do have Terry Beckner, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he's definitely starting to live up to that hype. I believe he has 6.5 sacks at this point, and he's going to be hard to block no matter who they put in front of him. But those guys, they may need them to play in this game, especially on the road. So without them, offensive line will have 6 healthy scholarship offensive linemen. So it'll be interesting.
For sure. And just switching gears here a little bit now, we've covered football, we talked about that enough. Yeah. But now we're going to get, switch gears and get a little bit into some basketball. So obviously both the Tennessee men's team and the women's team, the Lady Vols, will be in action. By Monday they will have both started their regular seasons. The Vols play tomorrow night. They kick off their season opener with Presbyterian. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the men's team, and then we'll get more into the women with their matchup on Sunday against ETSU. So, Damichael, you're one of the two basketball beat writers that we have for the Daily Beacon. Just what did you see in their exhibition game, and what do you think that they can take from that into this matchup tomorrow?
Well, the team looked pretty good in their exhibition slates. And I believe they beat Davidson in their secret scrimmage. Then you beat Clemson 71-67, I believe it was, in the non-televised charity game. And they also beat Carson Newman in Thompson Bowling Arena. So, 3-0 in their preseason slate. There were some positives, there were some negatives. Obviously, Rick Barnes, this team has a lot more depth. That's the main thing that you can take away from this team right now. I'll give you some examples. He didn't start Grant Williams against Carson Newman because, he felt like he wasn't practicing hard enough.
Barnes is a tough coach.
And exactly. And he said now that he has this depth, he can do that. He can just yank a guy out when he feels like they're not working hard enough because he's fortunate enough to put in a guy like Derek Walker, or with Jordan Bone. He yanked him out of the game after he said Jordan Bone attempted a dumb shot. So he takes him out the game, and then you have the ability to bring in a guy like James Daniel, a guy like Lamonte Turner. So this team is deep. Chris Darrington's questionable for the game. Jalen Johnson is another questionable guy. But, even without those two guys, I don't expect them to have much trouble against Presbyterian. But they've looked real good so far. They're shooting the ball well. It'll be interesting to see how they shoot the ball against Presbyterian this year. Granted, they hit 16 threes last year against Presbyterian. I believe it was their most last year, and it was the most since 2009. So it'll be interesting to see how this team plays. They have the depth. Barnes said he looks at it like he has 10 starters. So we'll see which players can separate themselves and they can start to form a rotation later on down the road. But this team looks good, and they should be better than last year and the year before that in his first 2 years. Yeah.
And like you said, that's a huge asset for a team to have that depth. And with that added depth has sort of brought some added expectations, I think, for this team. Talking a lot of people saying they could, make the tournament and even go deeper than that. So I think that'll be a very interesting storyline to follow. Thank you for that, Damichael. But now just getting a little bit into the Lady Vols, obviously head coach Holly Warlick's squad will kick off their season on Sunday at home at Thompson Bowling Arena against ETSU. The Lady Vols played ETSU last season, and they defeated them. They actually played them on the road there. They defeated them, that in-state opponent. So basically, just looking at this Lady Vols team, they played Carson Newman in their exhibition game. It was 121-76, very high-scoring game, and I think it's actually very similar to Missouri football's team because you've got this Lady Vols team has very high-scoring offense, at least what they showed against Carson Newman. You had Anastasia Hayes, who's a freshman point guard, scored 19 points in 21 minutes played. Had a very good shooting mark. I think she was around 9 for 10 or something like that. And then you have, Renee Davis, who just really lit it up. She had like 27 points, 13 rebounds, her first college action. But and so obviously this freshman team showed that they can play, and not only play at this level, but also play offensively, make the shots, just dominate the game. Obviously it was against Carson Newman, but I think that will probably translate. But at the same point, I'm pretty certain that Holly Woollick did not want to give up 76 points to Carson Newman, a Division II program. So Tennessee, will not be playing any Division II programs this season, in the regular season. So it'll just be very interesting to see, can Holly Woollick get that defense shored up? Is that going to be an issue going into this season? And obviously, having that young roster, having those freshmen, and I think in basketball sometimes offense can sort of come a little bit more natural, but it's the defense and the fundamentals that can trip, especially younger players up. So it'll be very, very interesting to see, how will Holly Warlick coach that team up throughout this season? How will these freshmen impact the game? I think that, against Carson Newman, Holly Warlick had, I know Avina Westbrook started, Renee Davis started, Mercedes Russell started. You have a really good, starting unit, and you also have a lot of these freshmen who can come off the bench. like Anastasia Hayes probably won't start at point guard, but she's someone, I've said this before, but she reminds me of Jordan Bone. She can score, but she's also a passer, really just a pure point guard. So I think this team does, a lot like the men's team, have more depth now, but they're young, and that will be interesting to see, can Holly Warlick sort of bring this team out of that young stage and get them to be competitive this year. And I think that they'll win, I think they'll win 20 games, but will they make that jump sort of to where Lady Vols fans want them to be? It'll be interesting for sure. Michael, do you have anything else that you want to say about sports in general before we wrap it up?
No, that's about it.
That's about it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it. Make sure to check out the Daily Beacon on Facebook, on Twitter. Follow both of us on Twitter. Follow the Daily Beacon Sports page on Twitter. Once again, thanks for watching. Keep updated with the website. We're going to have football coverage this Saturday, coverage of all the basketball games, just whatever you want. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for kicking it with us.